Twitch world, we have arrived. Hello. The rumors of my death are false. The rumors of Robbie's death are also false. We are here. We are alive. Robbie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Of course, man. The pleasure is all mine. We are pumped. Guys, I told Robbie this off stream, and I'm already kind of seeing it in play here, but I got a new computer. And so I there's like a lot of hijinks in play right now. What's going to happen? Are you guys even capturing this? Like, can you hear the audio? I don't know.
That's always my biggest struggle when it comes to specifically sound. My stream is cursed every single time. They're always like, we can't really hear you. You're really quiet. I haven't changed anything. I turned myself up last time. It's always that I'm too quiet. It's like I have nothing else to boost. Everything's up as far as it could go. It's the worst.
Dude, agreed. The ghosts of OBS are constantly moving and constantly a threat, honestly, to my mental health. But I bring that up to say that if anything comes up, chat, if there's any chaos, let us know. You know what I mean? Please. Evie, Onslaught, Foos, everyone that's here for Robbie, thank y'all for coming through. Before we get going, Robbie, like, say hi, introduce yourself. Who we got here?
Yeah, so I'm Robbie Landis. I'm a streamer, dungeon master, content creator. The platforms that I'm most active on are Twitch and Threads.
Yeah.
Over there, I can't pull myself away from it. It's such a great change of pace. I don't know how active you are over there, but it's such a great change of pace from Twitter. Like
100%.
It is the polar opposite.
100%.
I mostly create, as far as like content goes, I do magic items for a Patreon that I started 2 years ago called Cloaks and Capes. I have another friend who does it with me. We have two artists friends who help as well, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But getting sick of constantly starting your career only to be let go because of C-suites wanting bigger, shareholders needing bigger bonuses. Basically, I'm like, that's
Sure.
it. I'm done. I need to go into business for myself. And
you're the shareholder, Robbie. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah,
that's what
someday.
we're after.
But that's what led me to where I am now.
Cool. That's rad. Yeah, we met on Threads.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because threads.com is like something else. It's like a business interfacing tool.
Is that not?
It's not. And like I go there all the time. And
Oh,
it's at the bottom of it. It's like,
.net?
we are not associated with Instagram.
I have never noticed that it's a .net. That's
Yeah.
weird.
Well, it's mostly because we were like on the app or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
I bring that up just because like I have had that same experience where, at least on Twitter, currently called X, I kind of felt like I just wasn't. I felt like I really had to try to play to the algorithm, and like
it's a losing battle.
Well, it's a losing battle if you don't enjoy that to begin with. Like even if you're winning, you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, let's have some fun. And Threads has felt and remained fun to me, and I'm grateful for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same. As far as the, but first of all, brand new algorithm over there for me. Over on Twitter, there's esports, there's gaming, there's comment. Like there's so many different things that I've dipped into. And on Threads, it's all just tabletop RPG stuff. And to this date, since Threads first launched, I've only had one somewhat negative interaction over there. It was like one person being kind of passive aggressive, with one post that I did that I ended up turning around anyway. So like I don't think I've ever enjoyed prior to Threads like social media as a concept, but it's been real nice.
That's interesting, man. And yeah, I mean, this is not a paid advertisement for Threads, but we do clearly enjoy it.
No, Meta's terrible.
Yeah,
they farm data. It's all evil, all that sort of stuff. But they've already got my stuff. So
no, for sure. I've been like data compromised since 2017. Since Cambridge Analytica came in and threw the world on its head. Foodska, check it out. Gervon's good seeing you guys. But I think we got to get into it, man. We got to talk some D&D. We got to talk some tabletop. Now, Robbie is like a homebrew master, so we will spend definitely a good bit of time tucking into that. I'd like to also maybe bring up some of your stuff. We can kind of talk about it, maybe walk us through it, etc. But I'm curious, Robbie, just like in general, and this is almost always my first question, but it's because it's like the most important first ask. What brought you to the tabletop? Was it D&D? Was it something else? Like, how did you get vampired into holding a D20?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been into, imagination, playing make-believe, being creative. I think, going back as far as I can, I think writing my own stories or my own fiction, when I was younger, was sort of where it started. I can recall my earliest memory of just the creative process is I remember creating my own Beetleborgs comic when I was 8 or 9. And then physically mailing them to my grandparents,
who were huge
eventually,
Beetleborg fans.
Eventually when I got into high school, I got into theater.
Condolences.
I went to college for that.
Oh my gosh, condolences.
My roommate got into a group of people, playing 3.5, and when I heard that, I'm like, hey, can you ask them if I could come and play too? And he's like, yeah, and they were cool with it. I TPK'd my party on purpose in the first session because
you were a player or DM?
As a player. So my roommate was, we came in and the character that I created, we decided we were going to be brothers, right? So he was a monk, I was a rogue, we were both half elves. And in our first combat, he runs forward. He's a monk with double movement speed. Runs forward, and these lizard men just completely wipe him out. And then the wizard casts, I think, magic missile. It was some AOE. It was an AOE in 3.5. And the DM's like, that's gonna kill the monk because he's in that area. And the wizard's like, yeah, but my character wouldn't care. This is what they do. Literally pulled my first session ever. Pulled this is what my character would do card. So killed my brother in front of me. So I'm like, okay. We get back to town. I spend everything that I have to get, I think, what were the boots of elven kind in 3.5. So I have insane health. And then I sneak in and I coup de grace everyone in their sleep as revenge. God, and then the DM's like, all right, next session we'll make new characters. And looking back now, so many red flags.
The DM's like, go for it. Oh yeah. You want to do what? Go for it.
Yeah. But that was my first session, and it was all downhill from there. Or uphill, I guess, depending on what way you want to look at it.
You traveled uphill, but easily. I think is what it was. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that is so classic. Yo, Omega, welcome. We got the man in the flesh in here. That's hilarious, dude. Yeah, apparently all in one session foods. That's hilarious. So let's just stay on that thread. When you guys, two questions. Was there bad blood? Was it awkward? Was it tough with the wizard? Were all the players back? And then second question, what did this new party dynamic look like?
Yeah, so I think we had decided that I was going to make a new character as well, because everybody was just making new characters anyway. There wasn't any bad blood between everyone. This was definitely, I think, a table that just kind of rolled with the punches. I think with the way that the focus on narrative in a lot of today's D&D, thanks to shows like Dimension 20, Critical Role, I think those players still exist out there, and I think those are the type of players that you see, who argue things like, oh no, if you die, you should just be dead. Have consequences, and that's a whole other topic. But yeah, back then everyone just kind of rolled with it. Eventually, some of the players in that group is what led to me becoming a DM. The DM in that group was great. Loved him, but there was definitely a power gaming, min-maxing rules lawyer in that group.
Got it.
That pushed me to want to be a DM myself, because he was part of that DM's group and didn't want to cause any issues, didn't want to get into well, I'm not gonna play if he's not gonna if he's gonna be there type deal.
Sure.
I did my own thing. That's how I got into DMing, and I think it was 4th edition when that finally happened.
No.
So the start of 4th edition is when I got into DMing.
Dude, Robbie, that is okay. So because as a player, I've played very briefly 3rd and 3.5. I've never touched 4th edition. I did recently get obsessed with Baldur's Gate 1, which I understand came out 25 years ago. I'm aware. but I hadn't played it. And so in that sense, I felt like I was kind of exposed and familiarized to 2nd edition. Lightning bolt ricocheting, THAC0, casting times on spells.
Negative levels back then too, which some people assure me was so fun.
Yeah, dude, I believe me, I mean, the first day of me playing Baldur's Gate was me just Googling everything. I was like, what the fuck? But all that to say, what was it like to DM 4th edition? To start DMing with a new edition?
So I'm definitely on an outlier when it comes to 4th edition. Like, people either love it or they hate it, and it seems like most of them hate it.
Right.
For me, it wasn't DMing like a new edition, because my experience in 3.5 was just like a handful of sessions here or there. It never went very far. And I thought they did a lot of cool and interesting things in 4th edition. I had such a mastery over that system. I was working 3rd shifts at Walgreens, so when I decided I wanted to DM, I would take my lunch breaks there, and not even just lunch breaks, nothing was going on. So I read cover to cover the DMG, the player's handbook, and all the supplemental material I had. And it got to a point with 4th edition, and I also think because there's a lot of parallels between the way 4th edition was designed in like MMOs, the way that everyone had like
yes,
like abilities. It seemed like they matched up really well with the concept of like hotkeys, right? And was big into MMOs, played Final Fantasy 11, 14, and World of Warcraft for years. So I don't know if that helped with it, but I just felt like I had such a mastery over 4th edition that I was able to create encounters, run boss encounters, balance it with my players, all just very, very, very well, and it all just felt so natural. I understand what a lot of people's complaints were with it, but it was also so long ago.
Dude,
that it's like a distant memory.
No, dude, that is very eloquently put. In there, at least in my world, almost everything historically, even the like brutal mistakes or whatever, are typically rose tinted, where I'm like, man, I was such an idiot, but that was a fun time, And I'm curious with 4th edition, because I feel like the negative feedback I hear is essentially that it was too complicated, that it took like the rules and the heaviness of 3rd edition, and 3.5 had kind of streamlined that, but then 4th edition maybe thickened it out too much. Was that your understanding? Is that accurate?
I mean, looking back on it now, I can see how it would be interpreted as too complicated. I remember when we were starting sessions or making new characters, we'd go through with like index cards to write all the moves on, because like you had so many, right? Even when you looked at like marshals, it wasn't just about attacking. Rogues had sly flourish. They had all these different things. It was in a way like everyone had spells or spell cards. And I remember doing like down at the bottom, you'd be like, all right, well, I have this much dex, I have this much proficiency, my level is this, and so you'd have to like write up this long formula for how much your attack was. And like the thing is that still exists nowadays, but we just have so many tools to help better facilitate it in things like D&D Beyond.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem as complicated as maybe it would have been if we had those same things during 4th edition.
Copy that. I love that. Yeah, I've never played 4th, and I don't know that I will, but I am such a huge fan of going back and reading old campaign settings in adventure books, because it's even, because I mostly play 5th edition. I'm getting really into Call of Cthulhu as well, but you're just able to gather cool stuff that might not exist anymore, like certain spells from 3rd edition and 3.5. I'll just bring them bitches back.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, people are like Googling it and looking. It's like, I don't see it. It's like, no, you don't. You don't see it. All right, exit the Google search. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you came in. You were a player. Where'd you go to college, if you don't mind me asking?
Central Michigan University.
Dude, are you kidding me? So many of my actor buddies out here are from Michigan. That is so wild. A lot of them went to Hope College.
I know of it. I think that's a smaller community college.
It is definitely smaller. I think it's meant to be a liberal arts college, I believe.
Gotcha.
Was my understanding. But anyway, the point is that I've since made a couple trips to Michigan. I find it really charming. But man, so you're in college, like you're kicking it around, you're playing. Oh my gosh, the first session is this like angsty TPK. The fact that the DM let a first-time player stealth in and massacre the party,
kill everybody. Yeah, it was insane. I also remember too, because I was a rogue. The way that we like introduced me to the party was I basically came to them with like a plan to like rob this this like noble's like manor or whatever. And like the DM even said to me one time, after he's like, it's so rare to have like a new player come in and like influence the story this much. And it's so crazy looking back on it now.
He loved it. Where
we are today, because that's a mark of a good DM is taking people's backstory and like working it into
completely
the campaign. And like I look at and remember all the other campaigns that I was a part of that was only like 2 or 3 sessions, and there was no story. It was just like, all right, you're all a group together, and like here we're fighting some stuff now, and there wasn't really much more than just going like encounter to encounter. Maybe that's why they eventually fell off, or no one really had like backstories or anything.
Right,
so
right.
I don't know. I like literally just made that connection back there because and I think it came from probably being, both a writer and like a theater major. And that was one of the other things they had mentioned too, was like, you're really good at role playing. We don't really do that much.
Quit talking, dude. I'm stressed. Yeah. The DM's like scrambling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I can picture that so perfectly. I feel like every DM on the stream right now is like, yes, I've lived some version of that. I appreciate that, Onslaught. I will scope that out. That's incredible though, man. So like you played, and like, it's things are popping off. It sounds like this DM like loved you for good reason. He's like, oh, the pot is being stirred. But then you knew that you wanted to play, or wanted to DM rather. 4th edition came out, and I guess I'm curious, like in general, and obviously now you probably mostly play 5th edition in terms of D&D.
Yes. Yep.
Have you ever? Because you said you DM more than you play. Is it mostly homebrew? Did it start as campaigns? Like, is it kind of a mix? Or?
Yeah. So, back in college when I was doing 4E, we didn't have a lot of, the tools that these young whippersnappers have nowadays. Your D&D, your Roll20s, your Foundries, your virtual tabletops. Oh, it was rough. It was rough back before.
Let's draw
then.
it out. Yeah.
And so, one of the things where I ended up falling away from it was, when college was over and everyone went their separate ways. Now we didn't have a great way to play online with one another. It was real difficult. And even when Roll20 first came out, I had this I don't even know where it came from. Looking back on it now, it was dumb, but I had this need to be like, even if we're not in combat, I feel like I need a map, or I need something for them to see where they are.
Even just an image of the town or something.
Yeah. And so that ended up kind of pushing me away because I felt like I was missing something, and it was such a difficult thing to prep. And so then I don't know exactly when that time frame was, but then fast forward years, I start getting into Critical Role when Campaign 2 started. And it's still weird to me to see people who look at what Critical Role and what Dimension 20 do, and they think that it's hurting the space and the hobby more than it's helping it because of the Matt Mercer effect, right? They're afraid that people will watch Dimension 20 or Critical Role, and they'll think, oh, this is what D&D's like, and then they'll expect that from everyone.
Right.
Whereas I think most people understand that a professional set of people doing this is going to be, you don't watch the NDA and then think, if I go down to, the park, that's the level people are going to be playing at, right? So when I watch those, I start picking things up. I'm like, I can just theater of mind this. You don't always need a map, even if there's a battle. And so that's what pushed me to get back into it. And I forgot what the original question was that led us to here. So
no, man, we got some good answers out of that. I think it was more like, like you prepping as a DM homebrew versus
the homebrew
campaign
thing,
setting.
right.
Yeah.
So
I've
always done homebrew from the very, very beginning.
Wow.
I prefer to do homebrew, and it's
Shout
only
out to
just
Evie.
recently that I've started using like modules and like source books and stuff. The first time that I did that was with Dragon Heist, and I hated it. My players said that it was fun, that they had a great time, but I think the reason I didn't was I didn't have the confidence DMing that, because I hadn't read through and like memorized the whole book. I was kind of going chapter by chapter, and so there was always this nagging thought in the back of your mind when someone asks you a question that you don't know the details to be like, obviously I can make this up, no big deal, but what if the answer is in the book and the answer that I give contradicts something that happens later on. I don't know how familiar you are with Dragon Heist.
Not at all. I have heard, it strikes me anecdotally as being like a popular campaign.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I have nothing negative to say about it, but like a good example is one of the first places you go into is like a little like a trinket shop or like a pawn shop or something like a magical pawn shop.
I attack the shopkeep.
And it mentions in the description that there is a beholder plushie like in the door,
Shut
like
the
as you
fuck
walk
up.
in.
That's in the description?
That is in the description. And so my fiance at the time sees that and her character needs to have it. She's like I want that. I'm like, yeah, all right, sure. You know, roll some checks and she buys it from him, right? It turns out that thing is like a magical sensor for Xanathar, who's like the main villain in Waterdeep, so he can spy in on the party. And I didn't notice that until it mentions it later on in the thing. Like, that wasn't like a big thing. That ended up actually being like a cool thing. But it's just it's so easy to
blow by it.
Exactly, or to do something that might accidentally, you know, counteract something later on. So that was one of my big hangups on sourcebook material. And I'm like, look, if I'm homebrewing, if I'm coming up with everything, then it's all right up here. And if I make a mistake, I can then come up with a reason to explain what would otherwise be a plot hole.
Totally.
And it wasn't until the current campaign that we do on Monday nights over on my Twitch channel.
Which, by the way, that is at Robbie_Landis01. So you can click through on the description. Correct?
I think it's just Robbie_Landis on Twitch.
Oh,
you guys should know.
I'm sorry.
It is. Yep. Yeah. The 01 is just on Threads. But I'm obviously they can, you know, click my name in the chat too. To do
well, Robbie_Landis01 on Twitch, you're on blast right now. All right.
So when I decided to restart or when we decided to start the campaign that we're doing now, I wanted to use a setting, and because I'm so familiar with Critical Role, I decided to use Exandria.
Oh, badass, man.
Badass. And so that was a lot easier, and it's allowed me to be more. It's allowed me to do more stuff with my players, their characters, and the world, because the world, the history, all like the lore and world building is already there. And, you know, the amount of time that I would have had to have spent building out that before I could get to what's happening in the session is done now. And so I've now struck a good balance between using someone else's world and then creating my own homebrew story within it.
1,000,000%, dude. That's, and I mean, fundamentally, it works for you, right? But that is very similar to the kind of alchemical balance that works best for me in my prep. Like, I'm definitely an over prepper. I mean, anyone that comes through on the DM prep streams, which normally are Monday, but knows that, I mean, I really do like to, you know, bang out different kind of plot points, like sort of war game out, if this, then what, you know, just like an improv set. But really, it's just prepping a little bit of dialogue, like a little bit of anecdotal things efficiently and with heightened language, being able to really further the story is extremely satisfying to me.
I swing back and forth. You know, I'm so confident in my improv skills that I can and have improv entire sessions before. And the only thing that normally I'm like, I have to prep this is combat.
For sure. Gotta have the map. Yeah.
But honestly, if push came to shove, I could probably improv that as well if I needed to. And I find that now that I have the time to not worry about world building stuff, I can over prep too. And I don't know if like sometimes it feels like it's a blessing and sometimes it doesn't, because the times when I don't prep for certain things, or like, you know, if something crazy happens just sort of in the moment, afterwards I'll mention like, yeah, I didn't prep that part. that was all just improv on the spot. And like the players, like their minds are blown. They're like, are you kidding me? That was like, it seemed so perfect and poignant and just like, and I'm like, yep, just in the moment, I'm like, you know what, let's give this a try. And that's what came out of it. And to me, those are like the most magical moments of D&D.
Man, I can track on that so well. So let's talk about what kind of that prep looks like for you a little bit. Because or you know what, before we get to the prep, let's talk about just sort of like maybe starting a campaign. Is it, you know, because we talk about backstories, we talk about the incorporating of stuff like that. Right now, a campaign I'm running has been started as Dragon of Ispar Peak, and has then sort of spun out into homebrew. And it was probably Dragon of Icespire Peak for about like a year. And now we just passed 3 years of homebrew within the same world.
Nice.
So
like, congratulations.
Thank you, dude. It's been crazy. They're almost level 20. And I actually have some questions because I'm sort of in a very weird moment with it right now.
Oh, I bet.
But we'll get to that.
High level stuff gets crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not enough pit fiends in the world. But I'm curious because whenever I typically will start a new session, I don't want people to feel pressured about sending me 3 pages of super compelling anything, right? At the same time, if they want to send me 10 pages, like, go for it. But usually my version is I have the world, I have the inciting action, I have the important NPCs, both good and bad. And then after that, I'll usually take the backstory and find ways to fit it. Maybe I'll reach out and tweak it a little bit. But I'm curious, like, as someone that does so much homebrew, how you incorporate a player's backstory from session 1 onward, and then also how you might find ways to reincorporate it around, session. Get in here, Dork Flux. That is such a great name. Yo, the Dork Flux is here. That is an incredible name, dude. I will go to bat for you every day, or Dudette, whoever you may be.
Dork Flux was Dark Flux before that, but he's one of our long time community members over on my streaming in my community. So thanks for showing up, Dark Flux.
Appreciate that. I mean, going from dark to dork is epic. Like, that's epic. That's very,
He's no
very
longer
strong.
the edgy boy.
No, I like that. That's like whenever the Wild Thing kind of gets a haircut and gets glasses. Like, respect, like, let's start a family. No, thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate that support. But Robbie, I'm curious, like, how that is different, incorporating backstory early in a campaign versus later.
So I'm so fortunate to have the people at my table that I've known for so long, that have experience with role playing, experience with acting. A lot of them experience with writing as well, and it can be difficult and it can be hard at times. When we started the campaign that we're in, we just had our 2-year anniversary in January. So we're getting up there as well. We just had, I think, session 96 or 97 last week. And so, when we were preparing this, I came up with sort of a vague, general, overarching story that I want to tell. And then, I talk with each of the players, and I think it's more important before you start early on for them to get you as much as they're comfortable with, as much as they're, they can. And then obviously, you kind of work on it and see what happens as you go, because things are going to change,
right?
Both for the characters in the story as well as like for the player and stuff. And so some of them, their backstory was worked pretty hard into the story. So like our ranger Maeve, who's playing a paladin elf, she actually had a vision from the Oracle that kind of kicked off the story. So she's like directly involved in like what the main story is. Some of the other characters just happen to, be there at the start of the story and, were one of the chosen. And then they have their own. My good friend of mine, my buddy Chris from college, I've known him for a long time. He wanted to go with like an amnesia story to where he doesn't know anything, and he puts a lot of it in my lap to decide, what's going to happen with it.
Ooh.
And then we also had Rosalind, played by Callie, who is our paladin, who's another amazing creator that you should look into getting for future shows. I know she would love to do it. Cannot speak more highly of her if I tried.
Let me just jot that down real quick.
Yeah, I'll make sure to send you later as well.
Cool.
So she wanted to play the adoptive daughter of her character from the last campaign, who was from my homebrew world. And now we're setting it in Exandria. So I'm, look, I'm all about yes-anding. I never want to like stop anybody from trying something out. So I'm like, all right, you're going to be doing an isekai story then. And she was pearled from her world into Exandria, which worked really, really well because she knows nothing about Critical Role or Exandria, and now she gets to put that experience into the character as well, and it's been great. Like
they're both new to the world. That is beautiful.
Exactly. And so it can vary when you start, and then it can be just as challenging sort of as you're going on. But the one thing that I always say when it comes to anything in tabletop RPG is your best tool is going to be communication. You can never talk too much between your fellow players, to the DM. And, someone like Callie, we talk daily. We talk constantly about what, the character's feeling, what the player's feeling, what they, would like to be next. And Callie's very narrative focused. She, as a DM, likes to sort of plan things out, beat for beat. And I'm kind of the opposite. Where like, I have things planned. I have ideas for the world, but like they can absolutely be affected by things. I'm willing to throw everything out the window to go a new route with it. And it's hard and challenging striking a balance for her to be like, this is the path that I see for the character, what's being taken. And then me wanting to surprise her, but also you don't want to go too far to where like, something's happened to the character that the player isn't going to have fun with, right? So she likes to know what's coming, but I also like to keep her on her toes. So it can be very challenging to run that road. But the more you talk with your DM, I think the more you're going to see that you're going to have those spotlight moments, in the campaign. And then I have other players who are more passive. They're along for the ride. They're happy to be there. They still get their moments and they still interact with the other moments. But, I usually have to go to them to be like, hey, what's your character thinking right now? What do you see in their future? Like to get ideas from them, right? It can be a very difficult thing to balance. I've had a lot of conversations recently about, people being like, oh, my DM's showing favoritism, or they always give the spotlight to this person. And while that absolutely happens, I know that it does, you also have to look at things like, are you playing an edgelord? Are you playing like a rogue who like doesn't want to open up to the party? And anytime they try to get you to talk about it, you like
back off my candle, Rob. I'm back off my player. All right, like, that's my character.
Look, I'm just saying, like it can work, but you also have to realize when you're playing characters like that, you aren't your character, and you need to advocate for your character to open up. If you tell people I don't want to talk about it, and then they stop asking questions, and there's somebody else's character who's an open book, you can't claim favoritism.
Yeah.
Because they're role playing better than you. Sorry, that's what it is.
It's such a trope, right? But like there is really a fine line, because in a movie, whenever we're watching somebody that's like really tough and like emotionally inaccessible, like typically
I put up walls to protect myself.
Like, you know what I mean? But like there's gonna be a moment in the script where like the dude's wounded and like the heroine has his back and like they really connect, and like without allowing, like, but there is no writer. There's a room of writers in D&D, the players and the DM. And so like without that awareness as a player that occasionally you need to throw the party a bone, you know what I mean? Because it's like
my favorite example when it comes to that is another trope you see, where someone's like, oh, well, my paladin hates goblins. And then like the goblin in the party is like, oh no. And like, you always hear the story where the paladin's like, well, since I hate goblins because the goblin killed my family, I attack that person. It's what my character would do. And like where people need to start realizing the split is you're playing your character, but you're not your character, right? Like you said, you're the writer. So it's your job to find ways to explain why your character would do things that they otherwise might not do.
Right.
So in the paladin example, right? You're supposed to be working with this person. They're in your party. So even though your character might hate goblins, right? Maybe they think, well, I have to work with you. It's what we're being paid to do. And maybe not all goblins are the same. Right? You have to come up with the reason why your character would do something different. And if you can't do that, or you're not willing to do that, you're going to have a bad time.
Completely agree, man. Completely agree. It's something I think a lot of players don't understand until they DM. Like that's my opinion, because I mean, it's maybe something, and I will also say that like the first character I ever played, at least in 5e, was a wood elf druid who'd lost, their grove to tieflings, huge chip on their shoulder, but like unless you were a tiefling, Like, she was down and she wanted to chop it up. You know what I mean? But I also, as a DM, unfortunately, this character recently was killed in like a horrific fashion along the spine of the world. But I created a character who was supposed to be like Christian Bale's Batman. He was Edgeblade the Black. And like his whole thing. Yeah, that was his name. And like there was this thing where the party rolls up in Sundabar and like, you know, MacGuffin, but there's this big tournament and the paladin is like a mounted combatant. And so she's in the joust. And the final of the joust ended up being Edgeblade and Sweet Pea, and Edgeblade won. And so that led to him, Edgeblade, being able to ask a favor of like the council of Sundabar. And I only bring this up because it was so satisfying to me to basically like play this, you know, Edgeblade, like, I have never found anyone equal to me in combat. I ask you give me a task worthy of my blade. You know, and like putting forward this character that is such like a hard-on, you know, pain in the butt edgelord. Yep. But like playing it with sort of the wink to camera, like this dude is way too much and he's way too serious. And the next time they saw him, the creature he'd gone to fight had ripped him to pieces. And like that to me was a fun way to communicate like, hey, even like the big bad wolf can't solo an even bigger, badder wolf. Yeah. You know, and like, it's like, so there's ways hopefully to like, even with those angsty characters to like pull their heart forward, you know?
Another tool that I think it takes people a while to figure out that it's okay to use. And I even know, you know, people who've been role-playing as long as I have that don't use it as much. But you see Liam O'Brien from Critical Role, he does this a lot. Where, again, this is a narrative game. We're telling a story, right? And when you read a story, you also see what people are thinking. And part of what makes this fun is, again, since you're not just your character, you're the player. Okay, so there's certain context.
Sorry for the sound effects going crazy.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Thank you so much for the raid, guys. I apologize. Robbie was making a great point about edgelords and how they actually can be positive. But then we got raided by the best in the game? Come on, y'all. Apple Blossom? That's so sweet. Are they part of your community, Robbie?
No, Apple Blossom is not one that I recognize.
Dude.
No, don't worry. It's part of the Twitch game. Well, we appreciate you bringing your community in.
Seriously, thank you for trusting us with it. I'm Carper the DM. This is Robbie Landis. We're both DMs, but basically Robbie is breaking us off on some of his approach in holding a great table, creating homebrew, and was currently telling us about some of the pros of having an edgelord.
Well, not even just an edgelord. Anyone can use this technique, and it's something you know, me and Callie are talking about right now because her character, who's sort of like the de facto leader when it comes to combat, you know, has to put on like a brave face. She's dealing with some stuff, and she's not sure how to communicate that to everyone else. And like one of the things that you can do, and I'm going to use again sort of the edgelords as an example here, is you don't just have to act out your character, right? Because again, we're telling a story here, so sometimes there's context that you need to give to everyone else in a way that allows them to just sort of enjoy the story, right?
Completely.
So, for example, if you have an edgelord character and someone comes up and tries to like get to know them, and you blow them off, right? Because he has walls up, he's trying to protect himself, and you just walk off. If you end it there, you do that enough times, your party isn't going to want to try anymore because you're not giving them anything. But what you can do is narrate something along, you know, the lines of, you know, sorry, what was your edgelord character's name again?
Edgeblade the Black.
Edgeblade the Black. So you could mention how Edgeblade the Black, you know, scoffs. I don't need help. I'm fine on my own. And then as he walks off, you tell them, you see Edgeblade walking off, and you can see for a moment there's this look in his eye.
Yeah.
Like he wants to open up, but like you can tell he has walls up. He's been hurt. So like it's not working out this time, but like give that to people, because if you just keep that in your own head, the players have no way to do that. And when you think about it in books, in TV shows,
there's
in
that
anything
exposition.
Else, they give you the exposition so you know. Something that I've done in my campaign is all the main party are connected by like tattoos, like Final Fantasy 13 style.
That's
and if you get
too
far away from the other chosen, when you go to sleep, there's a chance you will dream of a memory of theirs. So we have an NPC ally that's like a permanent part of the party now. who is, this assassin changeling who, was trained from, birth to be like a spy and do espionage and stuff. And, she wanted nothing to do with them. She's just trying to, do her job. And so they're going after her. And one of the first memories that they see is of her sharing an intimate moment with a character who is from our paladin's world and is the girlfriend of our paladin. So this is the first time that our paladin's like, what? I see, like, who? Like, she basically sees, like, her girlfriend in this world, right? Yeah. And then eventually they find out that she died. And the girlfriend did in this world. And so now they know, like it starts to give those clues that, like, she's so, like, closed off to the world because she's lost. And that's something everybody can relate to. And that gives them a reason to want to break down these walls. And where we're at now, 90 sessions later, that assassin is in a relationship with one of the party members who's been slowly chipping away, at those defenses.
I love that, man. And that, I mean, that's beautiful homebrew, this beautiful weaving together of backstory. And I really do just want to, like, reinforce what you said, because it was poignantly put. Like that edgelord character is not only, like, can be actually really compelling and powerful, but it totally suits a lot of the themes and, like, the high stakes of the world of high fantasy, of typical tabletop, right? I will oftentimes do that same thing, like describe something, a moment of hesitation, a moment of faltering. Sometimes I'll offer it to the role-playing party member as an insight check. To just sort of, like, gain some lay of the land. But then the reverse, man, and this is more for whenever I'm playing, and I don't really play, like, edgelord characters, but there have been times where, like, I'm in a Curse of Strahd campaign right now, and it's just been a fucking nightmare, dude. It's been a nightmare. Like, you know what I mean? In the best of ways. But, like, my character, his in-game brother got killed early, and some shit went down, and it kind of caused a rift in the party. But there was this moment where basically, like, my character was disagreeing with another player's character. And, like, we kind of got there, and it's sort of tense. And I was just like, hey, just, like, quick aside, like, Tarragon hates this. Like, he's boiling. But me, John, I'm loving this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, this is great.
It's 100% fine to tell people what your character is feeling, even if their character doesn't see that, because it then informs the player how they might be able to play to sort of bring that in some way,
It doesn't close it off. It keeps it open.
Exactly. We're telling a collaborative narrative story here. So communicate both in and out of character.
Oh, dude, I love that. It's also the idea of, of just, like, that's just another level of communication, And it also empowers the party while taking the pressure out of some of that role play that can feel, like, tense and confrontational. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, wait, I got to read this. Anima Raptor, who is everyone that's coming through has had the most jaw-blazing handles imaginable. Anima Raptor, get out of here. That's amazing. Well, thank your wife for rating us. Cheers on that. Completely turned our Curse of Strahd campaign from grim dark to hope dark. I need that in my world.
My player and DM that I mentioned earlier, Callie, actually just wrapped up a Curse of Strahd campaign on Sunday and is wrapping up another one on Tuesday. So just another reason to reach out to her. She's also made significant changes to her Curse of Strahd campaign that is just chef's kiss.
Fuck yeah. I cannot wait to check that out. I need to finish the campaign, I feel like, before
of course.
You know what I mean? But no, that will happen, man. That will happen. Well, Robbie, let me switch gears just a little bit, because I could tell from a lot of your content, and especially even on threads and stuff like that. Like, I love all the stat blocks you post. I love the specificity with which you treat your homebrew, and it feels like it's really intentional, both in terms of fun and mechanics, but also balance, and, like, making sure that it's not going to come in and break a campaign or like make a DM regret using it,
You haven't seen the Tarisk plushie, have you?
No, I have not.
It turns into a Tarisk. The OP game-breaking ones are there, I promise.
Okay, I love that. Because as a level 20 DM, or almost there, I need something where I can be like, the shopkeep throws down the Tarask plushie.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because the handbook, and this is maybe like a bit too old school, but like the handbook really does talk about those pillars, like exploration, like social interaction, RP, combat, puzzles. Do you intentionally, like combat is obviously going to come up, and I can just tell from you as an actor and improviser, you love role play, you're good at it. Is there stuff where you're like, okay, I want to throw in a puzzle. I'm absolutely going to throw in a puzzle, or I really want to make this mysterious or up the intrigue. Like, how do you move session to session, kind of both keeping it fresh and also trying to lean in on these different pillars, if at all?
Yeah, it's a difficult balance to strike, and I think it changes not just DM to DM, but it should change table to table as well. Something that my players aren't into are like the old-fashioned dungeon crawls, because they usually just devolve into like, who's our sneaky character, send them up front, and so I like to lean, I think, more into role play, because that's what a lot of my players are into. Obviously, like you said, combat's important. I wish I did puzzles better. I think
that.
For me,
amen to
what
that.
What the challenge is when it comes to non-combat challenges is figuring out, ways that are both entertaining, engaging, and fulfilling. That doesn't just come down to someone being, what skill check do I roll for us to pass this? There was recently a great example in Critical Role where they had to find a magic item that was thrown into a ravine. They hop down to the bottom of the ravine. They have to find it and escape it. But as they're doing it, they have to reveal truths about themselves. And as they reveal these truths, stuff starts to rise out of this ravine to help them get out.
Yes.
And so it encourages not just skill checks, but role playing. Yeah. And you have to do something. You can't just be, DM, can I roll a persuasion to share a truth about myself? Like it's more than just a series of checks, right? That's the tough balance, I think, that you need to find with getting a really, really good session that isn't just combat or isn't just role play. And again, it's going to change table to table based on your players. But I think that I always try to look at, it's either going to be combat, it's going to be role play, and then what can I put in there that the players can respond to? I think I learned in this campaign early on to not write in a lot of right answers, like a lot of escapes or solutions, because if the players immediately go to, what can I roll to figure this out? If you already have an answer, you're going to start defaulting to it pretty quickly, right? Even if it's sort of not intentional,
can
eventually
you kind of
if
give
they
us an
start
example,
rolling
Robbie?
enough,
Could we break this apart?
100%. So there was a session where they were going down to this tomb of like an immortal being that was captured and entombed ages ago because heroes couldn't figure out how to kill it, right? And there was someone who had something that they were taking down that they thought was the key to like unlocking this thing. So they get down there, they get to the tomb. It's already been opened. They have a fight in there, and then this being shows up and locks them in his tomb. I didn't come up with a way for them to escape, because the moment that they're like let's say you put a secret escape hatch in there somewhere, right?
Sure.
The first thing that they're going to want to do is roll a perception check, right? All right, so someone rolls a good perception check. Let's say someone nat 20s it. All right, you see an escape hatch. My druid has a passive perception of 32.
Jesus Christ. They have observant or something?
Fuck that guy.
That's insane.
They have so many things. It's ridiculous. I don't want to get into that right now.
We have a staff of true seeing.
But if you have an escape hatch and someone makes a perception check, all right, cool. They're out that escape hatch now. Like, what you hoped would have been like, this challenging moment where they work together to come up with like an interesting way to escape was just one roll and now they're out. Right.
Right.
So I'm like, no, there's no escape hatch, and so let's see what happens, right? And so as the doors are closing, the druid turns into a bear and tries to hold one of them up. The paladin goes and starts holding the other door so that everyone can get out. There's trolls out there waiting for them. So as they're running out, my poor wife, she's the first one out the door, and I have there's 5, maybe I think they were Durgard, and they were cave trolls as well. As she's running out the door, one of these cave trolls is waiting for her and just hits her with a nat 20 giant club as she's coming out the door. And so now we go into this theater of the mind combat because for some reason, I didn't anticipate them trying to just get out before the doors closed. So I'm like, yeah, there's a bunch of, enemies waiting for you. And so it turned into this combat of them trying to escape, trying to hold the doors open, some of them not wanting to go out because, these enemies are waiting for them and raining arrows down on them and cave trolls. And so you have half of the party trying to figure out how do we get out of here, half the party trying to fight off the enemies, the other half trying to hold the doors open. And, if I would have just let them roll for perception, they would have just let the gates close and then just, went out the hatch or something.
That's a great example. And that, what we're really talking about is creating both significant and realistically grounded impasses, as well as creating new wrinkles and tweaks on what combat or an encounter is, right? And I think as DMs and players, we know that we want that. But it's not always a clear one-to-one in terms of wanting that and how would I justify that within the realistic world of this cave or this encounter or whatever you may have. I love that though, man. I think that's a wise way to approach it. And Evie touched on this, that sometimes it can be puzzles can either be too easy or too hard,
Yeah.
In general, I like to have what I call just the rule of 3, which there can be multiple solutions to something.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I'm all for allowing people to make those rolls to give them hints towards something as opposed to just using a roll to solve it. There was another aspect of hiding things behind DCs and checks that a lot of people get caught up on is they use the check as a pass or fail. So either you pass and you go on, or you fail and you're
relative.
Stuck.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And even if someone fails, normally let's say for a history check that I'm going to give someone, if they fail, you still need to give them the pertinent information or they're not going anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, the check isn't necessarily a pass or fail type thing. You all see it with doors, right? Where it's okay, try to open the door. Okay, you failed. Do you try again? Do you
Right.
You can't just stop progress. So the check is more about how well do they succeed.
Yeah. How long does it take?
How long does it take? And if it's a history check or for something, for every 3 or 4 over the history check, and I got this from Callie, allow them to answer questions, right? So let's say you have them roll a history check and the DC's 15 and they roll 25.
Sick.
Give them the information that they want, right? You recognize that this is, a statue of a forgotten god that you read about in a book in a library somewhere, blah, 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 blah. Because you got so high over the check, you can ask 3 additional questions.
I love that.
I will give you the answer, and your character knows that.
I love that. I've never heard that, but I like that because it is a grounded one-to-one reward, but it also I love giving the player agency. Right? Mm-hmm. It's whenever any of us, Mercer does it all the time, where he's okay, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Describe it for me so we can see what the DC is, whether it's even an option, what kind of check it is, etc. I just want to share this because you reminded me of it. I do quite a bit of homebrew as well, and same as you, a lot of the gotta have it prep for me is typically combat. Because I don't want to, for me, it's very fun as a player whenever it's roll initiative and then the map's there and oh my God, here we go. Whenever you have to take 10 minutes and stop everything, it's kind of a bummer. But I did this encounter, they were going, I steal from Silver Marches, the 3rd edition campaign setting, I fucking love it. But they have a character called Decanthar, who's this ancient first wizard. He's connected with the city of Silvery Moon. And they're venturing into his tomb to get this sword, essentially. And dude, I had to build out the tomb because none of it was provided in Silver Marches. And I really wanted it to be a dungeon crawl. Like, I wanted it to be multiple sessions in this before they reached the end of it. And man, I built this fucking bridge in Dungeon Draft. And it was essentially meant to be all in Elvish and stolen from Indiana Jones and I always forget. It's not Last Crusade, but what's the one with Sean Connery and it is Last Crusade. So the one where they're going into it and basically that bridge where they jump across and it's like spell Yahweh's true name. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, sick. I'm going to put like Elvish letters down. I'm going to create a bridge made out of tiles of individual letters. But what they do in the movie is they force Indiana Jones to jump onto the bridge to then initiate like the right sequence of stepping on letters. And I just forgot that. So I had kind of, the dungeon floor lead up to the beginning of this bridge. And dude, like I was so ready. I'm like, man, this is going to be crazy. Cause like halfway through, people are going to be coming up. And
then someone casts fly on the whole party.
Well, they didn't have that
across
yet.
The bridge.
Exactly. They didn't have that yet. And I was like, okay, cool. Like they're going to have to traverse this bridge. Mm-hmm. And the monk just comes up and starts, he was like, all right, I walk around the edge and I start hitting every tile. And it's like him just breaking these tiles, except for the ones that spell out the names of these old gods. And I immediately realized that this encounter had been completely turned on its head. You know what I mean? And so like in that moment I'm scrambling, mm-hmm. but I'm kind of like, I guess what I'm working towards is I feel like sometimes you have to, thank you Sage, and welcome in my prince. I feel like sometimes you just have to let the players win with their great idea.
Yes.
Like they got the better of me. It worked. I'm not going to cheat this.
Such an important
there it is.
lesson. And, when we talk about it, I think everyone's going to look at that and be like, oh, no, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Of course.
But it's a lot harder to learn when to let this go and when not to. And this is kind of two different lessons. My ADHD is going crazy right now, being like, we have so many points we need to make.
I know. Welcome to Between Two DMs, my friend. That's the entire experience.
All right. So the first thing, this is a lesson that I learned a few years ago now. The DM can't cheat, okay? Yeah. I used to be like, whatever I prep, that's it. Like, those are the rules. If I prep 5 orcs to battle the party, I can't add more orcs.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
But that's stupid. If the combat is too easy, which you can never tell until you get there because everything is so swingy, right? If the combat's too easy and people are bored, add more orcs. Have more people show up.
Sure.
Just make it exciting.
We'll have a plan.
The exception, and this is where I think this sort of important thing comes in, is you don't want to punish your players for being clever, okay? And you have to be okay with throwing things out if it's going to lead to a great moment. Agreed. So like a good moment where normally I would have wanted to add more minions in, but I felt like the way that they did this was clever, so I let them have the easy boss fight. Is they were going to meet with a Rakshasa who ran a thieves guild that they had some issues with, and it was him and 4 of his minions. They had just made their way through like a zombie pit, and they were looking pretty hurt. And they're like, "Let's just take a short rest." And I'm like, "He's right up the stairs here. He's not going to let you." And they're like, "All right, well, we're going to try." And like if they come down and like attack us, they have to come down these stairs, and then they're like bottlenecked. So like, if we have to fight it, we will, but we're going to fight them on our turns.
Okay.
And so he sent 2 minions down to basically like escort them back up. Like, come on, he's waiting for you. And they're like, give us 60 minutes. And they're like, no. And they just killed those 2 dudes and then basically took their rest. And I'm like, I mean, it was a calculated risk. I could have just added 2 more guys up top for him, right? They don't know how many he has.
Right.
But I'm like, they found a way to take 2 of them out before they got there. Like, I'm going to give that to them, right? Whereas another example of like not being clever, but just trying to be a little bit of a smart ass. And then this was Callie again. They get to this village that everyone's disappeared, right? Like all the kids of this village showed up to a different town, and they talked to this hollow man that showed up, and all the adults basically listened to him and like, something's basically going on here. So they show up in this place as a ghost town, and they need to get to the back where they see this giant tree with, weird things going on. And the way that I describe it is you have the village, that separates you from the start of this forest where the tree is. And Callie's like, well, do we have to go through the village? Like, can't we just walk around the outskirts and go through the forest to the tree? And I'm like, well, yeah, you could, but I prepared this whole village for you, so you're playing through the village.
Oh, dude, bless that. That's so great. You're like, there's actually thick puzzle,
and and if I had a bridge puzzle, and they're like, well, I just cast Flyness so we could get over it, and like completely bypass the puzzle, that's not a particularly clever solution. So I'd probably throw in, all right, well, as you go to do that, anti-magic field, you can't fly over it. Like in some cases, make them do the puzzles.
Sure.
But in other cases, let them have their wins. Critical Role Campaign 1, when they're in the Feywild and they're supposed to get a piece of a threshold crest for this Fey being, and Taliesin goes up and like pulls a splinter off of a doorway and go, here, it's a piece of a threshold. That's clever, right? Yeah. Matt probably had a whole side quest for them to try to get the actual thing, but like one-upping a Fey is like a cool moment.
Yeah.
Let your players have that. Reward cleverness that's going to lead to an awesome memory. But if someone finds a way to cheese something because they saw like a TikTok, don't give that to them.
Dude, if they are citing a TikTok, you got to cut that off, all right? You got to cut that action off. Yes. No, you're totally right, Robbie. Like, it's that difference between... It's different to cheese something through, like, gray area, rules as written lawyering.
Yep.
And just being clever. Because, like...
There was another boss fight where I had the avatar of a dead god standing next to, like, this god's weapon with, like, their hand still on it, and then just, like, this rift, this tear into the astral sea.
Like it had pulled this god into this material plane to use its weapon.
Well, the god had basically died here for some reason, and it ripped a portal into the astral plane.
I love the astral plane. I love it.
And so this avatar of this unknown dead god is still here, just protecting what remains of their power. And so they were going to have to fight this thing. And the warlock, I don't even know if they meant to do this or just worked out this way, goes first, hits him with 2 Eldritch Blasts. They have Repelling Blast. This thing was right on the precipice of this cliff into the astral. And so it pushes him out into the astral plane, right? And it gets to the Bard's turn. The Bard also has a knockback and does it again. And of course, I gave this thing a chance to try and make a deck save or something to claw its way back. It failed. And did they cheese that encounter? Absolutely. But they were so into it. Like, nobody else got a turn in this combat, but everybody was so blown away. Like, y'all just defeated this avatar to a dead god in 2 turns. Not even a full round, in 2 turns. They were so ecstatic that, like, that sort of thing. Did it suck for me? It did. That was a lot of prop in there. But, like, they're gonna remember that one forever.
Precisely, man. Like, that's heroic shit. You know what I mean? Like in that, and this is, let me just cap this because I am loving this, and I feel like any 2 DMs, where 2 or more DMs are gathered, you will hear a proliferation of encounters that didn't quite come to bear.
Nothing survives the players.
Exactly. They were like beautifully planned out, tons of many things, and just got shortchanged. And sometimes that is so satisfying because you're like, I put a lot of thought into this. I wargamed it. And you guys came through, and you used Stunning Strike once, and it created an opportunity. In that same Decanthar, in that same tomb, I had them fight a Nabasu because they're dealing with the god, the blood. It's a goddess in our campaign, but Bala, and man, I had this Nabasu come out, and like I was so ready to play this thing. Like it has this thing where it can like pull them into its body. And if a player is unconscious, it can start to like siphon out its life force.
Yeah.
And so like it's this screeching fiend, and like they were just getting to recognize sort of Bala's impact on this campaign. And I described it as like attacking again. And then I just wanted to have the visual of it landing. Like, and the fucking monk is like, oh, it landed? All right, cool. I'm gonna go up. And of course, just like, flurry of blows, 4 attacks, Stunning Strike. One of them succeeded. And that was basically the end of the encounter. And you know, anyone that's played a monk or DM'd a monk understands what's happening here. But like I could have given it legendary resistance, or I could have, you know, made it immune to stun, even though no stat blocks apparently fucking have that. You know, but I was like, hey, you know, let's just, like, he stepped up. Like, that's part of his toolkit. Like, this worked.
Yep.
Awesome. Like, here we go, you know? And so I think that
it's sorry, continue.
Well, just that it's like you said, if you keep monkey pawing away to thwart your player's cleverness,
yes,
it really takes some of the passion away.
You have to give it to them sometimes.
100%.
You have to give it to them sometimes. And like I've had DMs, I know those DMs out there who are more antagonistic. You know, I always encourage people to share your plans with your DM, because when your DM knows what you want to do, they can make it better, right? But I think so many people have those DMs who haven't learned yet that, like, it's a narrative collective experience, that when they know what the party's going to do, instead of finding ways to make it better, they plan how to counter it. And right. I really feel for people who have DMs like that. Like,
dude, it sucks.
Collaborate.
Well, because, like, I have played with a DM before that, like, really was kind of that monkey paw, where it sort of felt like, hey, like, anything that even feels like a good move, if it kind of circumvents something that the DM had planned, or if it, in the DM's mind, makes it too easy, this is going to ricochet back onto me and have a negative effect. And it, like, it really created an air of, I hesitate to say bitterness, but more like for me, where I kind of was hesitant to even take a chance.
Yeah, no, I 100% get that.
You know?
You even see DMs who will do it with, like, you know, the need to, if you have a moment, even narratively, where, like, you win or something happens, you know, like, everything has to have a consequence, and like, people don't realize that consequences isn't an inherently negative thing.
Yeah,
consequences just cause an effect.
Good point.
And, you know, I've had some DMs who, when we have a big win, something bad will happen, and it's like, you don't necessarily, like, people like, oh, but happy endings, you don't always have to have a happy ending. You don't, but you at least need to give your players time to feel and celebrate their wins.
Yes.
So it doesn't always feel like bad things are happening.
Agreed. Well, because then it creates a reactionary table, where the table's sort of like, okay, and then what happens? Okay, and then what happens? As opposed to, like, they are impacting the action and they are deciding what happens. It's a fun line. And I think it's also something that, you know, it's almost like a skill DMs learn, is like when to push back and when to allow that crazy Hail Mary victory, because you have to fucking have it. At the same time, like, doesn't mean you have to allow for people to, like, cast reduce on the dragon and then they put it in the bag of holding. You know, I mean, like, it doesn't mean you have to break the rules, but you can't always be taking away the fun. Okay,
I agree.
Let me ask you this, Robbie, because I just want, you know, you're a homebrew guy. Like, has there been a moment, and it can be any, I mean, you've described so many epic kind of encounters and situations. Is there a reveal or a certain encounter, or, you know, a kind of an aha moment, whatever it would be? Are there any kind of moments from your campaigns that you're particularly proud of as a homebrew DM?
Yes. So in our last campaign, we brought Callie in as a player near the end, and she had created this very dark, traumatic, like, hopeless character who she was a warlock of, you know, a fiend in the abyss called the Fleshcrafter.
Ooh.
Basically, she had lost her family. You know, her two daughters were killed because of this thing. That, you know, she didn't know that that's what happened, but basically it had put her in a position where it had promised her revenge, you know, for her soul. And so, you know, she did it, and then in doing that realized this fiend basically set her up, and so it's been her assassin for like 70 to 80 years. So when she meets the party, they are going through the abyss and they need a guide, and she offers to guide them if they help free her from this thing, because he can take control of her when he needs to, but doesn't always, right? So as they're going through the different layers of the abyss, they are being followed by this Asamar and, like, this tiefling duo.
Okay.
That I I got this idea from Sam Comerford, better known as Role-Playing, when he was doing it on Twitter. And the shitty idea that he came up with was a tiefling and an Aasimar who are warlike patrons to each other, the fiend and the celestial. So you have this this Aasimar who has like demonic armor, and then you have this tiefling with like celestial armor on because they're drawing power from one another.
I love that.
And they're stalking them through the abyss, and it's clear that they have some sort of interest in Callie's character, Evelyn, right? And when they get to a point where they're like, one layer away from getting to the Fleshcrafter, her
patron,
controller, her lord, or whatever, her patron. They attack her, and as one of them is going to deliver the killing blow, the other one calls out a name for her to stop, and it's the name of one of Evelyn's daughters. And in that moment, she realizes that this tiefling and this Aasimar are her daughters. When they were killed, the Fleshcrafter was able to get their souls as well. Sort of struggled with another demon and an angel that were trying to get them. And so when they were reborn in the abyss, they were reborn as a tiefling and as an Aasimar. But they were able to escape from the Fleshcrafter, and they thought that their mother had basically given them up for power. And it's been this 70-year revenge plot. And so obviously
on their end,
on
their side of things.
Yeah. And so obviously she's able to explain to them in a way like, no, that wasn't the case, and like they come to like very sort of loose understanding. But it's been 70 years. And they were children when they came here, and that story, because that was near the end of the campaign. That campaign ended with Evelyn finding a common ground with them, and actually continued in our current campaign where Callie was playing Rosalind, an adoptive daughter to Evelyn, who at this point now has managed to reintegrate into life and has found a happy ending. But her daughters, who took on the name Light and Shadow, are still grappling with what's next for them. And so Rosalind was able to help heal the rift in that family in our second campaign.
Dude, that's beautiful.
And just the look on Callie's face when they called out one of her daughter's names, and she's like, stop, wait, what? And I ended that session on a cliffhanger, and it was...
That's epic. That's epic, so man. And I love the idea. I love that it carried over into this new campaign and shed further insight and deepened almost that resolution. That's sick, man. Like, what was kind of the genesis of... Like, you got the Sim Comerford prompt. That's hilarious, right? Kind of like a goofy bit. But then, I guess, were you kind of sitting on some version of...
I think that I had seen the prompt first, and then Callie comes to me with my character. She's like, she had these two daughters. They died. She ends up being indebted to this fiend. She becomes their assassin. Blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, two daughters are dead, huh? Yep. And it just went from there.
Dude, that's fucking huge. It's huge. I can see that, and I mean, there's no feeling as palpable to a DM, or at least for me, as whenever you know that stopping the session is about to get like vocal reactions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Positive, negative, pushback, acceptance, whatever it is. But like, I love that. I love whenever it can like come to a screeching halt, because it's, even for me, the DM, I can't wait for the next one. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, let's see what happens, dude. I don't know. Dude, so let me ask you, these are so, like, you're so thoughtful with this prep, and I too like to, I'm not saying, I'm more mean, I also love to weave in my players' backstories. Is there a class, like for me, it's probably the monk, which I've kind of complained about, although I love monks, and I love the player that plays the monk. Is there a class or classes in D&D that are harder for you to build encounters or harder for you to DM than others?
Yes. Fuck paladins. Fuck them. All right. Yeah, first of all,
amen.
We talked earlier about like how certain class, you said your monk, stun lock someone and like get that to them, right? But like, there's nothing clever in that. That's just down to chance, right? And so nothing hurts more than having like a great encounter. And this is where it comes down to like the idea that like balance doesn't exist in D&D, right? Because things can be so swingy. If you roll poorly and they roll well, like that gulf of balance vanishes so quickly. And until you have a paladin that double crits in one turn on an undead or fiend,
that's funny.
Also, the fact that paladins... Did you know paladins can have multiple auras up at once? How is that not... Like, how... What? Like, it's bad enough when you're trying to get people to roll saving throws and, you know, they're rolling decent, and then your paladin's like, don't forget the +5 from my aura.
I know. I mean, the whole, 10-foot thing, I'm constantly trying to move people 10 feet apart. Even just giving people attacks to knock them 10 feet back. Like, get away from the paladin, goddammit.
Yes, Rosalind did, I think, 150 damage in one turn to a boss I had recently that I'm like, that's about to take all the danger out of this encounter. And then luckily I was able to knock her prone, and then 4 red caps on her, making 3 attacks each, all with advantage. I dropped her in that turn. So it was a good pivot back. And again, when it comes to the swinginess of these fights, they thought they were on the edge of victory, and then suddenly now your tank is not just down, is not making save, she's dead.
The way I really found, and I've done this multiple times, and as I'm describing it in this moment, it feels like I don't want this to come across as petty, because it's definitely not intended to be, but I feel like a great way to showcase to your table not only what it's like to be a DM, but specifically what it's like for them, is to introduce villains, or at minimum, neutrally aligned NPCs that share the same class as party members. And one of the remaining BBEGs is largely homebrewed, but a high level monk. And so there's that sense of this is what it feels like to fight you.
How do you like it?
You know what I mean? It's awful. Mm-hmm. Oh, was that poison damage? No, it ain't.
I got Rosalind with really, really good. When you have her on, and I'll remind you, ask her the story about how Rosalind lost her arm. You have to say lost.
Okay, let me jot that.
Specifically, because she is always there to remind me. No. She didn't just lose her arm. So they were trying to track down this guy who was kidnapping Warforged, right?
Ooh.
And he was constantly like ahead of them. And when they finally get caught up to him, the session before, they had got some more information on who he was, who he's working for. And as the DM, both in character, out of character, in lore, I gave them tons of expectations. This is a dangerous individual.
And wait, just real quick, because every DM I feel was yes. How do you do that?
Okay, so did this a few different ways. Again, as a DM, I let them know, just straight up, I'm like, hey, this is a strong guy. This guy is dangerous, okay? In character, though, they met with somebody from the Cerberus Assembly, which, depending on how familiar you are with Critical Role, they're essentially they're essentially the wizard CIA. So they met with one of those guys who told them who this dude is specifically, what his skill level is. He had worked with I forget what they're called, but there's this big mercenary company in the Menagerie Coast called I think the Golden Chain Mercenaries or something. So they're the cream of the crop in this region. This guy was kicked out because he was too dangerous or something like that.
Damn,
essentially.
Yeah. That's enough. That says a lot.
And then their DM ally that's with them, who's also a spy and assassin, was like, we do not want to fuck with this guy.
Oh, he was aware of him. It's brilliant.
Careful.
It's brilliant.
Yes.
He's I know who the fuck this guy is.
Multiple people telling him, we got to be careful.
Yeah.
So they get caught up to him in this valley, right? And so they had talked a few different ways about how are we going to go about this. Do we want to try and talk? Do you want to try and talk and see if we can come to an arrangement? Pay him blah 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 blah. And they eventually came to, no, we just have to hit him as hard and as fast as we can. And so Rosalind's the first one up, coming up next to him on horseback. I have them roll for initiative. She gets the first hit. She smites him. And then he uses one of his reactions. And this dude is basically Goro from Mortal Kombat, except all of his arms are mechanical.
Bro.
And so he looks like a hunchback because they're all hidden. His arms come out, grab her, and then pull her arm off and chuck her back at the party. And that's where the cliffhanger ended, with her having her arm ripped off and thrown at the party. So
I recently injured my elbow, and my entire arm just shuddered. I was like, ah!
Yeah.
Don't rip it off.
I will say that was a bit inspired by Brennan in EXU Calamity when he asks Marisha, "Where are you most weak on your arm?" So I got to have a moment like that, and now whenever I mention on social media, yeah, Rosalind lost her arm. She's like, no, let me be clear.
No, it was stolen from me.
She didn't lose her arm.
It was ripped away from me. It was taken.
Yep.
Oh, dude, I love that. Robbie, this is just beautiful, man. Okay, well, before we do rapid fire, let me just ask you one more question because
yeah, of course.
There's so much that, and truly, guys, be it on Threads, be it on his personal stream, like go check out some of his homebrew content because it really is. I mean, it's all the way up from like classes, abilities to items. Like, there's a lot of really, really thoughtfully produced and offered stuff. And I'm curious because that does require like a great understanding of the system, of the rules. I agree that especially as a party gets higher, balance is like a relative thing.
You
know what I mean?
Between the magic items you've given them and then how
dice.
well they work with one another,
Totally.
their dice, your dice, it's a balance doesn't exist.
And what we're finding in our Curse of Strahd campaign, the one that I'm a player in, is that if you have 6 level 7 characters, like not all level 7 characters are created equal.
No,
we have no marshals. We have a bunch of bitch ass, like, I'm a bard. Everyone's just like very afraid of up close personal combat. And it was a mistake. But where was I going with this? Oh yes, just like, is there anything as a DM? Because these are all things that you're great at, things that you love, and like that comes to bear an expression in the prep or in the session. But is there anything as a dungeon master or gamekeeper that you don't like? Like what do you hate about being a DM?
Oh,
I know that's a weird question, but
yeah, no, it's an interesting one though, because I think a lot of the things that I would normally say or that I would normally warn other people of or that other people might say, I think is negated when you have a good table to play at. Honestly, I think that the thing that I hate the most is letting my players down.
Dude,
things go so well, and I'm so lucky and I'm so fortunate to have such an amazing table that we have fun so often that yeah, it's when I let them down in some way, and like it doesn't often happen. But even with knowing them as well as I do, and this is a great PSA for why, even when you have a good table, even when you've known people at your table for so long, safety tools are still important, because you never know when something might come up. I had a character who, when we had a player step away for a while, his character sort of went to the gates of the town and just had sort of like this moment and talked about how, people have left him in the past. And like afterwards, the player was like, I didn't realize that abandonment was one of my triggers, but it is now.
Oh.
We had another player who got
real.
hit with whatever it is that ghosts do that can like age you, and got aged 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's the scream, right? It's like some sort of shriek.
And like realized in that moment, like, being like just that concept of like suddenly just losing years of your life, like that was a triggering moment for her as well. And so just being put into moments where my players, for whatever reason, aren't having fun, don't feel safe, whether it's somebody's fault or not. I hate being put into positions like that, and there's not always anything you can do about it except respond to it in the moment. And just, again, best tool you can use, communication. Just be willing to talk about it and be open about it.
Robbie, that's well put, man. That's really well put. I love that. Yeah, communication is key. And it's tough because, like, what you're describing is, I imagine, very, very rare at your table and in your world. But at the same time, is super poignant, And I'm sure that I've had those moments. I think there's more of an awareness sometimes, like, and it's really just the performer in me, but I'm always kind of like, are we good? Are people enjoying this? You know what I mean? And like, I think that is a constant thread for any DM or any DM that is not completely self-absorbed.
I think where it was most put to the test, because I was feeling really, really, really down about it. There was a moment early
Robbie, just
on.
real quick, like really down about like, for example, like this moment of aging where the character was like, damn, I didn't realize like how much that affected me. Like that's what had you down.
No. It's a different story here.
Oh, my bad.
This affected everybody. They had done a few things that made life difficult for a thieves guild. And
get in here.
This thieves guild had sent people out to basically make an example out of them. And so they had set up an ambush to where there was a cart and some people trying to fix it. Of course, they stop to lend aid to help. A few of them sort of separate from their own cart, and then they fireball the party's cart with mages who are, they can't be seen. And then the party is split. We have, half on one side of the map, half on the other side, and half of them just got fireballed. It was an encounter that was designed to be very, very tough. I was looking to basically do like a Negan moment from The Walking Dead.
Ooh,
and they got,
got it.
Yeah, they got really, really close to beating this encounter, and it came down to like, the boss basically had one of their companions, like sword to the throat, and was like, stop it or you're going to regret it. But from the player's perspective, like, we're so close. Like they're right on the edge. And because they refused to give up when they were told to, the druid did end up dying. He rolled enough, failed saves where he died. They did get him back. But like when we ended that encounter, everyone felt really bad. That was the first encounter where like the party lost, right? So them as players, it was definitely one of those moments of like bleed, like bleeding from your characters into the player. And so for the first few days after that, I was really second guessing myself about whether or not I should have just given it to them or not. And obviously we care about our characters. We care about the stories. We're going to feel just as deeply for moments like those. And like when we look back on it now, I think we all agree that was a great moment in the story.
Yeah.
But that week following that, I was really questioning like whether or not, going forward, that level of failure was acceptable or not.
Man, gosh. I'm just gonna let the silence hang for a brief moment.
It was heavy, yeah.
I mean, Fuzga nails it. Like, party losses are heavy and can be, and it's twofold because, as dungeon masters, as keepers, like we are, responsible like for the table, for the experience. But sometimes that goes the opposite direction, where it's like we're responsible for challenging, for creating a world of threat, of violence, of significant cause and effect. And like, oof, it's tough. Like
I'm also a big proponent of like, you should never TPK that's going to end a campaign, right? Like imagine any of your favorite books, TV shows, movies where they come close to dying. Imagine if they did, and like that was just the end. Like it's a waste, right? Find another way to use it. I'm not saying you shouldn't TPK if it's a suicide style campaign, Exandria Unlimited. Like they have their place, but I will always give my players as many chances as possible to continue the story. But you also can't write it off completely, because then like it does lose something,
No, I feel that. Have you had any or a fair amount of player deaths or player character deaths?
So player character deaths, yes. Permanent, you're rolling up a new character now? No. We use the fading spirit rules that Critical Role does, where when you're resurrecting someone, there's essentially a check that you go through,
an increasing difficulty. Yeah.
So no player character has failed that yet. A few NPCs have on occasion, and I think that we've had to roll those rituals, I think twice in our current campaign.
Got it.
Yep. We had the Revivify go off when Rosalind was killed by the Red Caps. And then there was Leo, our rogue. Without going too in depth about specific mechanics for our thing, they were trying to close this portal that, as they were trying to use their powers to close it, it dealt damage back to them, and they were meant to like share that damage amongst them. And our rogue basically went up and was like, I want to put everything I can into trying to close this. And I gave him an automatic success. but he took like 186 damage.
Oh yeah.
And basically, he was just a fried skeleton afterwards. And so they had to do a ritual to bring him back.
Whenever you're dying outright from damage taken,
yeah,
that's like low key. That's sick as fuck to me. Like I love that.
It was a great moment for them because when they were sharing it, when they were sharing it, it was just like a few damage each. I think they thought that it was just basically 1 damage each for each resource they were spending, but it was a D8 each. But when it was divided amongst them, it didn't seem like that. So he took I think 20
really
D8
consolidated. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's insane. Yeah, man, I disintegrated a player somewhat recently, a player character.
Ooh. I haven't used yet, but we should be getting there soon. Any like insta death mechanics?
It's tough as fuck, and I say that just because I was a player first. You know what I mean? And so that feeling of it just sort of happens. It's like,
to just be like you're dead now.
Lloyd, that's hilarious. 30 D8. Come again?
It was Lloyd. That was Lloyd who it happened to.
I appreciate that breakdown. That is insane. Thanks for tuning in with us, Lloyd. But before that, I mean, the BBEG was this level 20 divination wizard. And in the sessions leading up to this like big encounter that took, I think, 3 sessions of combat, and it was honestly one of my favorite things to prep was that wizard and sort of his backstory and what that encounter would look like. But I told them, I was like, guys, let's pull up the wizard spell list together, and let's look at some of these spells: power word kill, mind blank, disintegrate. You know what I mean? And dark star. Like these things where, I mean, this is not some roll to save. This is a roll to live.
Yeah.
And, do I think we as humans in 2024 are like met with that often? Of course not. But in the high fantasy, in a campaign across 4 years, sometimes it needs to reach that point. And it's tough, man, especially the player that was like, the power word kill got counterspelled. And there was another disintegrate where the player saved and got down to 2 hit points. And so like the player that ended up being disintegrated, it sucked so bad. But it was this sense of like, the sense of loss within the party, while enormous, was extremely galvanizing because the rest of the campaign, which is still going on, but the rest of the role play and the dynamic was centered around, okay, we need to bring these wizards to justice in a vicious way. And also, can we get 10,000 diamonds or 10,000 gold worth of diamonds? You know what I mean?
So something else I just want to put into your mind just for future use, because I've been waiting for a moment to use this. I don't know if you've heard of an indie game on Steam called Wildermyth. If you haven't, look it up.
No,
I'll even remember to send you something.
Yeah.
It's fucking brilliant.
Is it like what is it? It's like a turn-based.
So it's a turn-based, procedurally generated sort of narrative game. It's very simple. The art style is like cut out characters on like a board. So like it's a very sort of cute thing. And in between the battles, it has these sort of randomly generated stories and like just these little vignettes that it puts your characters into, and it's
ooh, I love that.
It's very sweet. It's very just sort of small and just it's great to play on stream because you can name all your characters, and I love going through and creating characters with people in stream so they are in the story.
Dude.
But one of the things that it does is whenever a character dies, you have 3 choices when they hit 0 HP. You can have them retreat, at which point they usually take some sort of like permanent hit to their stats in some way, but they live. If it happens again, they die. You can choose to sacrifice yourself, which they die, but then it'll either buff the rest of the party or it'll deal a bunch of damage to like one of the monsters.
Okay.
So this idea that like, the person who gets disintegrated, they get like one last sort of Hail Mary. What do you do in this moment to help, everyone? And then the other cool thing that I want to be able to do at some point, because we use Critical Role's Vestiges of Divergence, so everyone has like these really powerful artifact weapons and stuff, is if your character has an artifact, you can have the artifact basically sacrifice itself, destroying the artifact, but the character gets to live. And so imagine having that moment where Disintegrate hits, right? The character fails the save, and then you get to narrate the power of like their artifact intervening, destroying it, but now they get to be in the fight a little bit longer.
Yeah, man. See, that's fun because and I literally mean that. I mean, well, within reason, but practically anything that we can find to at minimum give a player choice, as opposed to, and obviously sometimes that will be dictated by dice. Oftentimes it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I love that, where it's like, okay, you can, but this, or this, but that is available to you, even though it's higher likelihood of success, or whatever it would be. I like that, man. Robbie, that's fun. Well, dude, here's the deal. I was about 10 minutes behind starting the stream, which I hate because I'm loving this, and I'm really enjoying getting to chop it up with you, man. I need to get out of here a little bit after noon PST, and we are legally obligated to put you through a sequence of the show known as the Rapid Fire. So I think we have to do that. And I know I didn't prep you for this. I rarely do prep the guests because I want them to be on their toes for this. But essentially, it's going to be a sequence of binary questions, like red or blue, up or down, but they're all TTRPG or D&D specific. Fusca knows, Evie knows, Sage knows. Pretty much every DM that's been brought through has been put through the ringer. There's no wrong answer. It's more just like, you just go with your first thought. And
you want reasonings behind the answers as well? All right.
I need 800 written words backing up each answer. No, it's really just meant to be like, okay, cool, like where you coming from, where you at, etc. But but with no further ado, are you prepared for the rapid fire?
Yeah, look, I got the alert feat, so you ain't gonna surprise me.
I love it. It's like roll at advantage. Okay, let me just drop this just a little bit. Perfect. All right. With no further ado, Robbie, welcome to the Danger Zone, little place known as Rapid Fire. So the first question I have for you, when building a character or when having characters built at your table, which do you use? Standard array, point buy, 4d6 drop lowest, or 3d6?
4d6 drop lowest, but if the total is under 70, you can re-roll again if you want to.
Interesting. I've never heard that. I like that.
This gives people the choice that if they get like a good 18 or something like that, they want to keep, and the rest of their stats are bad, they can take them. But also makes it so that you have less of a discrepancy with like one person who rolled really, really well and is better at even their worst things than somebody else who rolled very, very poorly, and even their best thing isn't great.
That has happened every table I've played at. And look at that. Omega, that is aggressive. 3d6 is the most aggressive, but I respect the heck out of it. Okay, copy that. That's very kind, but also fair. Table snacks, sweet or savory?
I do almonds recently. I think I'd probably go more on the sweet. I don't know, right in the middle.
Got it.
I know that's not an answer.
So
but
salted almonds that are drizzled in chocolate.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Okay. Vampires or werewolves?
I have them both in my campaign. Probably werewolves. I feel like vampires have too many weaknesses. Although we just killed a vampire in our Call of the Netherdeep. It was one of the characters' sort of main big backstory.
How'd you kill it?
So they ended up. I let them get away with a moonbeam because the moonlight is reflected sunlight. So I'm like, that does it. But not before. Not before, because it was a very close down to the wire fight, and the paladin was down next to them, and I'm like, I can't just let him get away. Yeah. Even though this was a tough encounter, unscathed, I knew she was dying last turn.
You took her other arm.
With her last turn. This wasn't Rosalind. This is a different one. But with her last turn, Paladin was already down. She used all 3 attacks against him, killed him outright.
Ooh, dude. Now listen.
Ended the campaign on that. So we'll be seeing what they can do about that on Friday.
I love attacking down characters. It is so frightening. I love it. Okay, but we got to keep moving. We got to keep the pace. Okay.
Yep.
Werewolves it is. Cowboys or pirates?
Cowboys, because I've been playing a gunslinger a lot recently.
Fuck yeah.
Really, really
and anybody in chat, feel free to drop in your answers at home, especially if you're a first-time chatter, because I want to know. Respect that. I feel like it's hard to choose one, but typically there's a reason. All right, giants or dragons?
Oh, dragons.
Red dragon or blue dragon?
Red dragon. You gotta go with the classic.
Yeah, okay, respect. Spellcaster or melee?
I am a rogue main at heart. I've gotten a recent appreciation for druid, but I'll always go back to the rogue.
Respect that. Okay. D100 or D12?
D12. It doesn't get used enough.
Oh my gosh, dude, I love that. I feel like that's never.
Plus, they got the good, nice heft to it, and like as much as I love rolling, like I'm not gonna roll a giant ass D100. I'll roll 2 D10, right? But there's just something about 1 D10, you know, having like the solid number, then the other D10 having like, you know, the percentile on it. That just it doesn't satisfy my brain the same way it's just a chunky D12 does.
The weight and the lines of the D12 are very satisfying. There's no doubt about that.
Quick question for you: resin dice, gemstone dice, or metal dice?
You know, if pressed and only one, it would be gemstone. Because I have a lot of quartz and I love it, and that's my favorite shit. I played a moon druid, but
cat's eye are my go-to. But
let's see,
they're so beautiful.
Oh my god, dude, that is gorgeous. I love the layout on that. I did recently get an all copper D20, and it is rolling hot as a pistol. So I would be remiss to not say that. Okay, which is the sexier NPC, a kobold or a goblin?
A kobold or a goblin? I tend to play my goblins a little bit on the silly dumb side. Shout out to Dirt Boy, may he rest in peace.
R.I.P. Dirt Boy.
So I'm gonna go goblins just because, like, you know, the way that they are usually seen as like tinkerers and like explosive experts.
Yes. There's something very fun and also unhinged about that, which is great. Going back to the days of Warcraft, if you had to jam yourself into one of the following player categories, which would it be? The edgelord, the min-maxer, the rules lawyer, or the actor?
I'm gonna go with the edgelord and the actor, just because the NPC that I'm mostly playing right now is definitely the edgelord of our party.
The R34. Dude, I love the idea of being like, I am an actor that plays an edgelord. Okay, astral plane or fire plane?
Astral plane. There's a lot more you get to do.
Agreed.
In there.
Astral plane is
a lot more
spooky.
variants.
It can get weird. Life cleric or death cleric?
Death cleric. Probably going back to the whole, you know, edgelord.
Bro, that's dark.
Aspect.
Death clerics
Plus,
are like, what happened to you?
Although, you know, playing like a Raven Queen life cleric, that could be interesting.
Yeah, I guess you could find a dark life cleric would be wild.
Yeah.
You know, like what happens when they heal someone or when they take that revivification. Okay, scarier thing to encounter in a dungeon. A small boy that's lost and somehow immaculately clean, or an old woman wearing rags that won't stop laughing.
I'd go probably the small boy. That's definitely something I would pull on my players. Yeah.
It's like, why is this boy here alone, and why is he so clean? Okay, I like that. A cleric, a bard, and a warlock all walk into a dungeon. Which one comes out?
A cleric, a bard, and a warlock?
Mm-hmm.
The warlock. It's always the warlock.
Like they made some deal to get out of it? Okay, I love that.
Yeah, who knows?
Okay, similar question, but a cleric, no, excuse me, where are we? A druid, a fighter, and a wizard all walk into a brothel. Which one walks out?
The wizard. Too much of a nerd.
He's got the gold to spend. I guess that probably would.
No, he probably doesn't have the gold to spend because he's got to spend it all on inks and papers.
It's like it's already been spent. Could I trade you, my love, 4 sheets of paper? Okay, let me ask you. Elf or dwarf?
Elf.
Gnome or halfling?
Ooh, I'd probably go gnome.
Interesting. Halfling is way more popular. Tabaxi or tiefling?
Tabaxi.
Respect. Same. And this is the only trick question. I want you to know we stand turtles on this show. Turtle or turtle?
I'm going to go with the turtle.
That's a wise choice. All right. Last question of the rapid fire. Yes or no? Should cats have dark vision?
They don't, do they? They absolutely should. 100% they should have dark vision.
Completely agree. Anyone that's seen a cat or been attacked by a cat in the dead of night understands exactly what the heck is going on. That's incredible. Robbie, you were off the hook. You've made it through the rapid fire.
I appreciate it. That wasn't too bad.
Hey.
Your feet served me well.
Yeah, exactly. You handled that like a pro. Definitely didn't get the better of you. Man, this has been a blast. Like, I knew we'd have fun, but I really, really enjoyed this. And
yeah, if you ever want me back on, whether we're actually, doing a show or whatever, yeah, if you ever want me on to, shoot the shit some more, let me know.
Yeah.
It's basically what we do over on my channel too. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. We're always live creating magic items. The biggest sort of, I guess you call it like a content pillar, I suppose.
Yeah.
For us is collaboration. Every
Dude.
magic item we've made, which we
Yeah.
just put out 10 today, I think we're up to 537. Every item we've ever made has been inspired by the chat or by someone in some way,
That's
whether they're helping
badass.
us come up
That's
with the
badass.
name,
Yeah.
they made the suggestion, they're helping me with like the way I should word it. Like, we love talking to people in chat, using their input to create, and just otherwise, talking about the campaigns we're in, sharing advice and stuff like that. Like, it's just a hangout. And we also started reviewing people's homebrews as well on stream.
That's
so
badass. That's badass. So, Robbie, are you Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Typically, all three of those will be homebrew.
yes, yeah,
Sick.
we basically go live around like 4 or 5 o'clock,
And that's Eastern,
we go
huh?
till Eastern time. Yes, we go till 8 on Mondays. We then do D&D afterwards, except for tonight.
Coffee.
Fridays are a little bit shorter, and then I also do Apex Legends on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if that's your thing.
Okay, sick, man. I'm telling you, I am obsessed with Baldur's Gate 1. And I just had a son. I just had a child born who's 9 weeks old today. But I bring that up mainly because like my streaming schedule has gone to hell.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But I am getting back, guys. Thank you for your patience. But I mainly bring it up because I have played maybe an hour of video games in the past 2 months, which over the past 20 years, with a few small exceptions, is like the smallest amount of time I've ever spent since I first picked up an N64. So that's awesome. Guys, if you can, please drop Robbie a follow. He's at Robbie_Landis on Twitch and at Robbie_Landis01 on Threads, which is what you see in front of you in terms of the handle listed. Dude, this has been a hoot. Do you play Call of Cthulhu? Have you ever played?
I have not. So some of the other games that if you don't mind if I just drop my.
Oh my gosh! Please. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. The Star Wars tabletop RPG with like their not the D20 system, but they have like their own like proprietary system for one of them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I played a little bit of that.
Sick.
I recently played a one shot in the One Ring. I recently played in Vampire the Masquerade with Aaron My Laundry, which I don't know if you're part of the Tabletop RPG Collective. I'll send that over to you as well. It's a massive Discord and collection.
I'd love to get in there. No, I don't think I am.
In the space that I think you'd be able to find all sorts of people to obviously interview.
I need a new pipeline
there, so.
for DMs. I'm
yes,
low.
This will 100% be your
Sick.
thing. What else? D&D is definitely like my bread and butter. In the past, I've done Mutants and Masterminds,
never
Gamma
heard of that.
World for
Sick.
a little bit. Yeah. So I haven't branched out as much as I would like to. But there's a few other ones here and there.
Well, that sounds like a wide array of sort of exploration. Yeah, appreciate that follow, Fuzka. Fuzka, also, if you guys are looking for an actual play, she is incredible. She has a really fun crew over there, but basically will switch off DMing 2 separate campaigns with some other caveats between her and one of her brothers that also plays in the game, Ninners. But I've had them both on. I get to hang out with them quite a bit. I feel very lucky with that. We're in the works on a Call of Cthulhu, either 2 or 3 shot coming in about a month, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, please, if you're interested in like checking out some actual plays, Fuzka's incredible. Evie streams over at Altered Echo Archives as well. Trying to think who else I missed. Onslaught 6, content creator, does a lot of fun Kickstarters with their own systems, one of which is about to be released and come out, which I cannot wait for. But yeah, man, I just appreciate getting connected on stuff like this. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. It's been a blast.
I like to end all of my D&D streams by raiding somebody that is also doing D&D. That happened to us. We got a raid today. That honestly scared me because I don't get raided a lot. I was like, what is that alert? But it's just a fun way to kind of like spread the love and, just kind of kick it around a little bit. So if you can, chat, if you are able to stick around and just toss out a little bit of love to these peeps, we are going to see what's going on with Fire Alpha. This looks very fun. I think it's an actual play. So we're going to roll over there and raid them. But, Robbie, you're a prince, dude. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the knowledge.
Thank you.
This has been a treat. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, that's it. If you can drop some love either over on the Twitch channel or, check out our Patreon. Even if you don't have the means to give, we do have a free tier just so you can sort of keep up on what's coming out. Maybe one day you see something that you're like, hey, that's worth the $3. Cool.
Yeah.
I do this full time now, at least until my savings runs out, and my wife says that I have to get another job.
Same, brother. That's so funny.
Any way that you can help support, I appreciate it.
We will, man. We will, guys. Get over there, give Robbie some love. We're about to raid Fire Alpha, who is streaming Dungeons and Dragons. It's ALFA, so it's sort of a different alpha. Maybe it's Alpha, unclear. But if you can't get over there, tell him Carpe sent you. And as always, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We out. We gone.